Welcome to Von Boekenstein. I'm Ken Lammers. Yes, I know I retired the Von Boekenstein channel, but I decided when I got a question about a Korean TV show that I would at least revive it for one episode, although I'll probably be posting it on one of my other channels. Um, Now, I got to ask a question about a specific show, but what I'm going to do is of the like 10 or 11 that are in my queue in Viki, where you can find all sorts of Korean TV shows. I'm going to say what are the top five by my rankings, and then I'm going to say what are the top five by the rankings of the general community in Viki. I understand these will be somewhat different. A lot of people go to Viki because they want the romances, and I'm not so much there. I realize that a lot of Korean stuff has the romances in it, but it's not my primary draw. So if you're looking for more romance, you might follow what most other people are saying. If you're looking for the kind of things I might be interested in, uh, you know, you might shade towards my choices. Here are my top five shows that I'm watching on Viki in Korean. My favorite, now I had two of them that tied at the actual point wise. But my absolute favorite, I think, is My Fellow Citizens. This is a show about a con man who is blackmailed into running for the Korean Assembly, and he's got this mobster lady who's trying to make him run, and because she wants a specific law changed, a usury law, basically, she wants it to go away, and that's her entire point of trying to get him elected. Uh, the twist on this is he is married to a police officer. He didn't realize she was a police officer when he married her, because she hid it from him until they were headed on their honeymoon. Because the last person she'd just broken up with had told her she could never get married because she was a police officer. So he's not told her he's a con man. She is running around doing all her police stuff, and it ends up being a really interesting show. As in all Korean shows, there's a lot of comedy mixed in, and it works pretty well here. It starts out pretty comedic, although there are life and death issues going on, threats of killing this one or that one, that sort of thing. But it's actually a lot of fun to watch. It's pretty intriguing, and as it goes through, and he actually gets to the General Assembly, and we have to see what's going to happen there. I really recommend this. I think it's the best one that I've seen in a long time on Viki or in a Korean series. And they leave us at the end with a hope that there's going to be season two. Looking forward to it. My number two is Hotel Del Luna. Now that's I got the same number of points, but I enjoyed it just a little bit less. It is a story about, well, there's several things in the story. As you go back in a thousand years ago, 1,500 years ago, I'm not sure how far off the top of my head, there was a couple massacres, right, involving a bunch of politics and drama in the past, and this one woman comes out of it all on top, and she's both angry and upset, and all this sort of stuff, and she ends up being attached to this hotel, which is basically a purgatory. And she's stuck there. She's stuck attached to this hotel. She's got to run it. She's the owner, uh, because some goddess has decided she's going to be the one running this place, right? And she has human managers. And, skip through time to modern day. We get a slight thing from 20, 30 years ago where somebody promises his son will serve her in exchange for his life, and skip to modern day, and the son ends up coming there, whether he wants to or not, to work as the human manager of the hotel. who's the only human that's actually in the hotel, is the manager. The rest of it's run by ghosts. It has an interesting start. There's a good section in part of it that's humorous, uh, particularly when they go through and describe she's tried to find other people to be managers of the hotel and talked about how they've gone off track or they've gone to extraordinary lengths to get away from her. One becomes an astronaut, so you can go where there ain't no ghosts, so she can't get to him. It's kind of so the owner can't get to him. It's kind of fun. It's interesting. It starts out with like a little mix of humor, which you get in a lot of Korean dramas, and it works into intrigue between how things from the past are being sewn back up, and this time how the goddesses are interacting with everybody. The goddess, who is apparently several goddesses, Uno 1, Uno 2, Uno 3, Uno 4, Uno 5. I mean, and it gets pretty intriguing. I like this one. It kind of flips the script, right? A lot of Korean dramas have that guy who just doesn't show any emotions. He's all about the mission. He's just not going to be sidetracked by romance or any kind of drama. And that flip that, and that's the woman here, right? And usually there's a woman who kind of brings him to the real world and makes him live a good life or whatever, right? Or sets him on the right track. Well, this time it's the guy. The guy who becomes a human manager, he is, and we find out pretty quickly, he's the reason that she's going to finally get what we might call redemption. So I was pretty impressed with this. I like this series a lot. If you're a big Korean drama watcher and you watch all the stars in that, apparently the way they wrapped it up at the very end is really impressive if you're into all these Korean stars in that. I'm not. I didn't recognize who it was, but it still was a pretty doggone good ending. And, well, ending going on to the next possible story, but I like it a lot. The concept is really cool, and I think that you would like this too if you got to watch it. At number 3, I have Stove League, which is about baseball, which apparently is fairly big in Korea. You need to understand this show. You have to understand that Korean baseball is all sponsored by companies, right? So it's as if the Detroit Tigers were the U.S. Steel Detroit Tigers, right? Or the Cincinnati Reds were the Skyline Chili Cincinnati Reds, that sort of thing. Every team is sponsored by some major corporation, or some corporation at least, right? Well, this team, that the Dreams, who we're following here, has just been a terrible team. The company that owns it, corporation owns it, wants to dump it, but they can't because it'll be terrible PR, right? Because it's a huge stadium, lots of fans, all sorts of stuff, but it's not making money, and they just want to dump it. And this is a lot like Major League, if you remember the comedy, except it's not a comedy. It's seriously, they bring this one manager in who's famous for whatever team he manages wins. They win a championship and then immediately disbands, and that's what they hire him for. They want him to win, and then they want to immediately disband the team. At least that's the way they play it. Although, as they go along, the guy holding the purse strings is making it almost impossible for them to win that season. So, it's interesting to watch. It's a pretty good show. Number 4 for me is The Fiery Priest, the Fiery Priest, however you want to say it. This is a show about a guy who has a past, which they gradually reveal to you as the show goes on, who's become a priest, but he's not exactly your wallflower, turn the other cheek type of priest. And that's kind of indicated in the fact that he's named Michael. We all know who St. Michael is, Michael the Archangel, the warrior angel, right? It's a fitting name for this guy. and there's developers and crooked people in town, and as part of some big scheme they've got going on, they kill the head priest at this church uh, so that they can get control of the orphanage the church runs. That, the head priest was an absolute pacifist, turn the other cheek. I don't care how badly they treat me or what they do. Everybody's welcome at church. Everybody gets a chance at salvation. Everybody. And this new guy, this priest, Michael, is not. He is very much hands-on, punish the sinners, right? And we get to see the corrupt people around the city. We get to see how corrupt the prosecution process is, the police are, everything, right? And this priest is actually going out there and making something of a difference, although it's so corrupt that they're able to adapt to just about everything he does. I'm over halfway through. It's an interesting story. However, I'm not sure that Koreans understand the celibacy thing having to do with priesthood, because they've kind of shown two women to have a whole lot of interest in him, and not as friends or the fact that he's a good priest, right? They keep talking about how handsome he is and all that. I'll take their word for it. And apparently he's kind of got that pride thing going too, because he says it a couple times, as I recall. Be that as it may, on the other hand, while they've got these two pining after him and kind of almost going into a romance with him, they also seem to say a couple times that this could ruin him, and nothing happens. He doesn't do anything that's forward that could be seen as trying to start a relationship, either an emotional, bond, marital type relationship, or just pure physical. He doesn't seem to do anything like to start that, but the women seem to come at him because they're interested. So maybe they just don't understand the concept of celibacy in the priesthood. I don't know. But it does get into further and further in. He's fighting with these people and those people, and his history and his background, which is pretty nasty and pretty impressive at the same time, starts coming up more and more and more. So it does make it an interesting story, particularly as both he and the corrupt people in the city are both getting backed into corners as things go forward. I really recommend this. I know it won a ton of awards, or I saw something that said it won a ton of awards. I don't know. It's not the best show. I mean, obviously, I'm ranking it fourth out of the shows I've watched or watched consistently, but it's good. It's pretty doggone good, actually. Number 5 is Strong Woman Do Bong Song. I know I'm saying that wrong. I apologize. I can hear some Korean now. If you say Ani, I know what that means, but I don't pronounce it right. I've never studied the language, so I know I'm getting names wrong. Anyway, this is about a woman who is a superhero, whether she wants to be or not, which she does not. She is a long line, the last in a long line of women who the firstborn daughter always gets super strength and apparently some immunity to other, invulnerability. Otherwise, super strength would rip you apart, I guess. But she is the latest one. Her mom lost the powers because if you use the powers for self-gain or to harm others, they go away, right? They're a little bit vague on where the line is on all this because she does do some stuff that's fun but selfish. So she doesn't want to do that. She wants to be a software developer, right? Software writer. And so she's trying to get away from it all. And she has a guy who she's interested in who's a police officer, but she tries to act, she doesn't tell him about the powers or anything, and she tries to act all helpless with him because then he can be a big strong man and help her out, and she thinks she can get him that way, right? She ends up getting hired by the president of a software company who has death threats against him because he finds out about her super strength. He hires her and promises her after the problems are over that she can work developing programs. Tells her he's gay as part of this, trying to get her hired on so she'll go to his house and stuff like that. Uh, he's not, and of course he falls for her. And the police officer ends up breaking up with his girlfriend to be with her. He's going to try to be with her. And she's caught in the love triangle thing, right? That's about where I'm at. There's a lot of humor sprinkled in here. A lot of humor sprinkled in here. She does some really kind of interesting stuff. Beats up some gangsters. There's a lot of humor around what happens with these gangsters in town. She, has a kids gang that she beat up a little bit and made clean up the community and go to school and stuff. And they start doing stuff that's hilarious or really kind of fun because of her. At work, she injures one person because they do a chicken match, and another person who's supposed to be her manager, whomever, she's just tormenting to death with her powers and stuff like that. And not that it undeserved torment. I mean, this guy's actually done some pretty rough stuff to her, but it's fun to watch. It's just fun to watch. I suspect where I'm at right now that it's heading more into romance and the three-sided romance. That's not my bag of tea, but I'll probably still keep watching this every so often, just because I like the humor and it's pretty well written. So that's my top 5, right? Now I'm not going to go as in depth on the top 5 of what everybody else is ranked. But let's talk about them a little bit. Number 1 from what everybody else ranked is my number 5. And that's Strong Woman Do Bong Song. This is, as I think I said at the beginning, there's a strong tendency, a lot of people on Viki who are watching it are watching because they want to see the romance, right? So they love this. And I can't argue that it's a bad show. Like I said, it's 5 for me, 1 for everybody else. Number 2, Hotel Del Luna. Well, that exactly matches up with mine. Number 2, I think it's a good call, and that may be your best recommendation overall. Because if it's what I like and it's what they like, and obviously there's going to be different views about what people like, it's probably a good one to hit. Number 3, I show as, or there was a tie for number 3, and that's between Stove League, which I've already described, and Queen of Mystery. Queen of Mystery is something that you would have seen in the 80s or 90s in the States, really. Housewife who's great at solving crimes. She's helping out her local precinct or sub-precinct where there's only 3 officers solve crimes, and she gets involved in bigger stuff. And a bigger detective who's been banished to that little place for a while comes in. They knock heads at the beginning, and then she gets involved in a pretty doggone big case where everybody's in danger, and it's pretty good. Hour and a half long shows. It's kind of like watching a British thing where there's actually a little bit of a movie each time, but that's kind of kept me from watching it as much as I would have liked, because it takes a pretty big time commitment. And that only leaves number 5, and that's the Fiery Priest, which is ranked number 5 by the general audience out there. I ranked it number 4. Again, a good recommendation there. I think it's worth watching. Okay, so having actually ranked them, let me say what I think about it. You can find Korean shows on Amazon and on Netflix. You might actually be able to find them on Hulu too. I'm not sure. I've not really looked there. And you can find them elsewhere. Viki is a good repository. There's a fair number of free shows, and then there's a next level and then a level above that, which you have to buy service. And somebody, I'm going to butcher his name. It's either Kokakawa or Kokawa or whatever. You have to buy that service, and you can get some of the really good shows. And they're worth watching. If you go to Viki or any of these things, you're going to find that the vast majority aren't going to be things you want to watch. That's what I find. I go through Viki and I find, if I went through everything that was on there right now that I've not already tagged to watch, I might find one or two things that I'd be interested in otherwise. Probably not. I think I've gone through recently enough that there's probably not anything new that I really want to pick up. But I don't find a whole lot there. But what I do find is good. It's pretty doggone good. That's it for today, folks. You know, if you want us to, you can subscribe, and maybe I'll get one more of these up sometime soon. And I'll see you soon. Or maybe not. Bye now.